I can't get back to my screen. There we go. My apologies. I'm having some technical problems here. Good evening, residents of Everett, Washington. I would like to call to order the Everett City Council meeting of March 30th, 2022. The City Council is still conducting our weekly meeting remotely. We are preparing to reopen the council chambers to public meetings when public health considerations and our own safety considerations indicate we are able to do so. In the meantime, there are several ways in which you can engage with the council and watch and participate in our meetings. You can watch council meetings live on Comcast Channel 21, Frontier Channel 29. You may watch live online at www.everettwa.gov/citycouncil, where you may also watch past meetings. You may call in to listen to the live meeting at any point by dialing 425-616-3920. Conference ID is 724-887-726#. You may make a public comment at our City Council meeting remotely. Go to the city website. Under the City Council department, you'll see a link that says register here to provide comment via Zoom. You will fill out that form completely, and after the form is submitted, you'll receive an email confirmation with the Zoom link and the phone number to the meeting. Participants must submit the form at least 30 minutes prior to the meeting. Forms submitted after that time will not receive the Zoom link or phone number to speak, but may still participate the day of the meeting by submitting comments in writing to council@everettwa.gov. For assistance, please contact the council office at 425-257-8703, or you may email Deb Williams at dwilliams@everettwa.gov. And please note, we do not allow comments on any kind of campaigning, whether for or against ballot measures or candidates running for office. We also do not accept comments focused on personal matters that are unrelated to city business. Outside of our meetings, members of the public are always welcome to contact council members or provide comments or concerns on any matter via email at council@everettwa.gov or by calling the City Council office at 425-257-8703. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Mayor Franklin?
Here.
Councilmember Fossey?
Here.
Councilmember Vogely?
Here.
Councilmember Toohey?
Here.
Councilmember Ryan?
Here.
Councilmember Schwab?
Here.
Councilmember Zarlingo?
Here.
President Stonecipher?
Here. I would like to ask Councilmember Toohey to please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the flag for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And Councilmember Vogely, would you please read the land acknowledgement this evening?
Yes, I will. Thank you. The City Council wishes to acknowledge the original inhabitants of this place, the Shtahoksh people and their successors, the Tulalip tribes. Since time immemorial, they have hunted, fished, gathered on, and taken care of these lands and waters. We respect their sovereignty, their right to self-determination, and honor their sacred spiritual connection with the land and water. We will strive to be honest about our past mistakes and bring about a future that includes their people, stories, and voices to form a more just and equitable society.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for the approval of the minutes of the March 23rd, 2022 meeting?
Councilmember Zarlingo so moves.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Councilmember Ryan seconds.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fossey?
Abstain.
Councilmember Vogely?
Abstain.
Councilmember Toohey?
Did I miss something? Sorry,
No.
I had a little issue there.
Approval of the minutes. Councilmember Toohey?
Abstain.
Councilmember Ryan? Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. And thank you. Good evening, Mayor Franklin. Much sadness in the city this past week.
Yeah, thank you, President Stonecipher and council members. This has been an unimaginably sad week for our city. We are grieving the loss of Officer Dan Rocha, who on Friday afternoon tragically was killed in the line of duty. Our hearts are heavy, and my thoughts and prayers are with Officer Rocha's family, his wife, and 2 young children, and with all who knew and loved him, as well as our chief and our entire police team who have lost a beloved coworker and friend. Every day, our police officers bravely put themselves in harm's way to keep every one of us safe. Our community is heartbroken and honor Officer Rocha's memory, legacy, and ultimate sacrifice and service to our city. We set up a memorial fund to honor his memory and support his family. The city is covering as much of the memorial cost as legally possible, but there are some expenses that government entities are not allowed to cover with public funds, and that is where the private sector can come in to support. Private sector and individual donations will directly support Officer Rocha's family, as well as cover the portion of the memorial that we cannot legally fund. I want to thank Coastal Community Bank and Victim Support Services for quickly helping put this fund together. Donation information can be found on our main city and Everett Police Department websites. The memorial service will take place on Monday, April 4th at 1 p.m. at Angel of the Winds Arena and will be open to the public. Thank you for the outpouring of community support that we've seen over the last few days, and for keeping Officer Rocha's family and our police team close in your thoughts as they process this terrible tragedy. And I don't have any further comments this evening. Thank you, President Stonecipher.
Thank you. And before we move on to some other stuff, I want to thank you, Mayor, for explaining the funding of the service. I think there's some people in the community that have been somewhat confused about how the city can partake in that funding. I'm happy to announce that the City Council will be making a collective donation to the fund, as well as I'm sure many of us will be making our own individual donations as well. Tonight we have one item that is time sensitive, so I'll read the action and ask for a motion. I believe Deb has provided all council members with the item, and I know it is on I saw it on the website. So I'll read the action. Award and authorize the purchase of 4 Ford vehicles with Clary Longview LLC, doing business as Bud Clary Ford Hyundai, from Washington State Department of Enterprise Services contract number 05916, City of Everett number 2018-117. Do I hear a motion?
Councilmember Tui moves the motion.
Councilmember Schwab, second.
Thank you. We'll go down the roll to see if we have any questions or comments, starting with Councilmember Fossey.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Vogely.
Just a comment. I'm thinking that this is time sensitive because the cost can get much, much larger if we wait any longer. So I'm just putting that out there. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan.
Comments or questions?
Councilmember Schwab.
No questions, thank you.
And Councilmember Zarlingo.
Just a brief comment that I was happy to see that one of the vehicles was all electric. I think it was a Ford F-150 pickup. It's nice to see things going that way in the city, operating in alignment with its climate goals. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no further questions or comments. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fossey,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. And then I want to announce that we have pulled item 17 and item 16 is the council procedures, which we will take comments on today if we would like to, but we will plan on tabling that for action at a future meeting, possibly next week. And then finally, I just want to say that before we begin with the rest of our council comments, I want to inform the community that after my announcement last week about the council's desire to return to in-person meetings on April 6th, and the need to review security procedures with Chief Templeman and our police team, and in light of the tragic loss of our police officer in the line of duty over the past week, I feel it's important that we delay returning to in-person meetings until we can complete the work we need to do to make sure that that return is successful. We will temporarily suspend that return. We'll make an announcement in the coming weeks, and possibly hoping to return on or before the first week of May. I'll move on now to council comments and liaison reports, and we'll start with Councilmember Fossey.
Thank you. I wanted to thank Mayor Franklin for her comments on the senseless loss of our local officer. That was right in my district, and I know it really impacted a lot of our community. I just have to say, though, that it's been really heartwarming, the condolences, how widespread and from afar that have been coming in, and how so many that, you know, not in Everett, but farther out, just share in our grief. That has been heartwarming. But moving on from that, not being here last week, I did hear Council Members Schwab and Ryan speak about the National League of Cities event, and I also wanted to share that I found that conference very helpful and beneficial moving forward with especially how we're designating our ARPA funds. And it was very reassuring in the direction that the city is going, because we seemed definitely ahead of the curve on where we're putting funding and our approaches to things. And so it was nice to kind of get that reaffirmation on that, of where our these federal dollars should go. And I'm thankful for the approach to seek the grant writer in that position, because that'll be really, really helpful for a lot of the available funding that we'll be able to seek out. So it was really reassuring just on how awesome our city is in that experience. And so I was really appreciative for it. Right now, the Delta neighborhood is actually had received a grant. They have a big call out for muralists and artists. You might have seen that. So that is an open call at the moment for anybody locally that's interested. And I noticed on the consent agenda that there's also we're authorizing the mayor to sign the agreement for the transit education partnership with the Imagine Children's Museum, and that's, I just want to say, yay, that's pretty important for our, just that program and having that kind of partnership. So I'm super excited to see that on there. And I think that's all I have for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
Hi, and greetings. Good evening. Fair warning, my computer just made me disappear and I had to get back on. So if that happens again, hopefully I will get back on. So other than that, I was on vacation, and I bring that up because I missed a couple of meetings, but on the way we went down the Oregon coast, and on the way I noticed multiple cities, multiple jurisdictions, including Everett and Seattle, obviously, Tacoma, Olympia, even Astoria with their fair share of encampments. And I know that a lot of the public wants Everett to not be like Seattle. And so I'm thinking that Astoria is probably also having folks be thinking that as well. I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised, you know, especially Astoria because they're pretty small. So I'm just putting that out there. Also, and I've gotten quite a few calls, emails about Airport 99, and I've been down there a few times, especially since it's in my neighborhood, and it is getting quite robust with many people just hanging around and being who they are, but out loud and in public. So I just want people to know that we're thinking about that, and I'm not sure what the answer is. I'm going to put on the radar, say it in public. Maybe it's time for a safe injection site. That's not up for discussion tonight, I know, but now it's out there because we have to do something, and it's only getting worse. And that is exactly what many of the people are calling me and telling me about, and I've seen with my own eyes. And of course, finally, anyone that is suffering from this tragic loss of our Officer Rocha and or any others, you are not alone. This is a very difficult time. Reach out or don't, but know that you're not alone and that we care for you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Thank you, Council President. Well, I want to thank Mayor Franklin for your remarks tonight. I appreciate that. I find that I'm really struggling to find adequate words to express my feelings and sadness of this tragic event. And to Officer Rocha's wonderful, loving family and our department colleagues of his and friends and chief, our whole city, my prayers are with all of you as we try to wrap our heads around this event and to remember him and celebrate him as a wonderful person, friend, husband, and father. And to his wife and children and family, I'm sending you my thoughts and prayers for a very long time. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
I wish that, sorry. I wish that there was something I could say that could bring Officer Rocha back or relieve the heartache that people are feeling. Instead, I'll share my sincere condolences to his wife, and sons, his family, and friends and colleagues who miss him dearly and are mourning his loss. My heart also goes out to the first responders who were on the scene at both locations. I know that what they saw and experienced that day will be a weight that they will carry forever. On Saturday, my daughter and I gathered flowers from our yard and brought them to the memorial site outside of the North Precinct. And the way that the site's grown exponentially over these last 5 days is a true testament to how deeply this loss has been felt in the community. And I know that we all wish that Dan could be there to see it, but maybe in some ways that we don't know about yet, he does. So, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
well, the last few days, it certainly has been difficult to, to stay focused. And I want to thank the chief and the mayor and all the staff and the police officers for staying focused. Because through this tragedy, the duty still needs to go on. And I'm thankful for those that serve our citizens for serving for a higher cause. And I want to know the police chief and the family that the citizens of Everett are behind you. And they are devastated, and that we support our police officers. And we thank you for getting up tomorrow and serving and protecting our families.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, in an effort to maintain some composure, I guess I'll make a note or two about neighborhood issues. The yearly tradition of powerboat or limited hydroplane races, the mini boat races at Thornton Sullivan Park is being proposed again for this summer. I think it's the first weekend in June. Parks Board public hearings going to be held on Tuesday, April 5th at 4:45 p.m. So things are being done a little bit differently this year. There's open public comment and then a public hearing then where the Parks Board, I presume, will make a recommendation for the council to act on for either 0, 1, or 2 days for the boat races. So a chance to comment, and this is part of District 5. It's a regional park. It's significant really to all of Everett, and it's been an asset for Everett for now 100 years, something the city purchased a long time ago when the city boundaries were nowhere near there. So please, if you're interested in having or not having or tailoring what we do with the boat races, please weigh in on that. And also in terms of things that affect our city, once again, if you have, even though the Everett link for sound transit is some years out, a lot of the effects of that will be happening sooner than that. So if you're interested in getting some giving some feedback on that, the website everettLink.participate.online, or if you just search on sound transit and Everett Link extension, you'll get the chance to fill out a form there and get some feedback and help those of us who are working on the routes and the stations and the lines. Well, with respect to Officer Rocha, I didn't have the chance to know Dan Rocha. By all accounts, that's my loss. It's nothing compared to the loss to the city, the police department, other law enforcement, the neighbors and the neighborhoods he served. Most of all, the terrible loss to family and friends. I have great admiration and respect for Officer Rocha's dedication to public safety, his willingness to serve, and offer my deepest condolences to all those who knew him. Thank you.
Thank you. There's not much more to say except to just remind that, like many people, Dan Rocha came to work for the city of Everett because he had a desire to serve our community. And he did that and gave the ultimate sacrifice for doing that. But unlike many people who serve the city of Everett, he went to work every day not knowing whether one moment of his work could ultimately result in a loss of his life, or we have many police officers and others in our city that face those same risks every day, and yet they continue to serve, and we owe them a debt of gratitude for that. Like all losses, there's concentric circles of loss. The people who know someone the most are in that tight circle, and as the circles ebb out, people who know that person less well, but still feel the loss, are still affected by this terrible loss. I find myself floating in one of those outside circles, and yet I realize that there are even people beyond that. When this memorial service occurs, we will have people that will come from across the country to pay tribute to Officer Rocha and the service that he gave to our community. Like my colleagues, my heart goes out to his family, his children, his friends, our police officers who were comrades with him in passing and in training and in other aspects of their work. There's nothing that can replace this person in our lives, and yet we all owe him a debt of gratitude and tribute. So I am happy to know that we are making this memorial service open to the public. There are many people in our community who are feeling this loss and would like to be there to pay tribute to the work of Officer Rocha and the rest of our police department. That's all I have for this evening. We'll move on. Do we have an update from administration?
Thank you, Council President Stonecipher. Just a couple of things. Thank you all for the heartfelt comments on the loss of Officer Dan Rocha. On behalf of the staff, our entire staff, we're grieving and appreciate Officer Rocha's ultimate sacrifice while serving our community. And we stand ready as a city team to support and assist our police department however and whenever we can. The only other thing I'd like to mention is just a reminder that Mayor Franklin will be delivering her State of the City tomorrow morning to our business and community leaders from around the region. So that's my comments for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to City Attorney. What do you have for us this evening, Mr. Hall?
I don't have anything to report, and there is no executive session. Thank you.
Thank you. Deb Williams, have we received any comments from the community for public comment?
Good evening, President Stonecipher. We've received one written comment from Mr. Joe Kunzer, who also wishes to extend his condolences on the loss. He has also provided additional comments on council procedures, item 16, which I've provided to administration, council, and the clerk to be part of the permanent record. I have one community member wishing to speak on item 14, who I will call upon at that time. And I have one community member, excuse me, apologize, I have a cold. One community member wishing to speak under public comment. Mr. Willis, when I call on you, please turn on your camera if possible. Please remember to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Please remember to give your name and city for the record. At 30 seconds, I will ask you to wrap up. Mr. Willis, please go ahead. Mr. Willis, are you there?
Hello.
Go ahead, Mr. Willis.
Hello. My name is Harry Willis. I am from Seattle, but I work at a local coffee shop in Everett. My concern is with the COVID pandemic. I'm immune compromised myself, and currently I was receiving my second booster shot yesterday, as President Joe Biden did this morning. My issue is that we're not requiring vaccines anymore anywhere, and I feel like my health and safety are at risk, and I feel like other immune compromised people and people of 50 and older, 50 and older are still at high risk for this virus, and new variants are spreading nationwide and worldwide, and we're not doing anything about it. Another issue I have is I have many transgender friends and many non-binary friends, and at the city council building I've seen only male and female restrooms. One idea that I had was to make them all gender neutral. And then for our health and safety, maybe kind of like the vaccine passports, with the gender neutral restrooms, we could also make them one for the vaccinated and one for the unvaccinated for our own health and safety to prevent the vaccinated people from getting COVID from the unvaccinated people, sort of like we did at restaurants, but instead it's an all around progressive idea. It helps the trans people and it helps the vaccinated people. I appreciate your guys' time, and whatever we can do to fight for equality, to fight for trans rights, to fight for an end to the COVID pandemic. What we can do at a city level can start something nationwide, and I hope that we can get more gender neutral restrooms and more vaccine passports in our city, and hopefully some mask mandates too. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments. President Stonecipher, that is all I have. Wishing to speak at this time. I have, again, one individual waiting to speak on item 14. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll take up our consent agenda. Do I hear a motion to approve the 8 consent items?
Councilmember Ryan, so
Councilmember
moves.
we tied. Councilmember Tui moves the motion on the consent items.
Councilmember Ryan seconds.
We have a motion and a second. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. We have 2 items on for proposed action. Do I have any questions on item 9 or 10?
Question for number 10, if folks don't have a question for number 9.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thanks. It's a question, I guess it's more of a request than a question for item number 10. Let me make sure I'm on the right spot here. For Ryan Sass, I was wondering, so the cover sheet that's included with the item talks about how there's a suite of projects that are included for the design and whatnot. Is there a way that we can get a list of those suite of projects? It feels kind of vague right now, and it'd be great to get just the title of the project and just like a brief overview of what it is. Nothing too time intensive, just an itemization I think would be really helpful for contextualizing it.
Yeah, certainly. I'd be happy to do that. I'll provide that to you shortly.
Great, appreciate it. Thanks. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any other questions on the proposed action items? Thank you. We'll move on to item,
Yeah, I had a quick question.
Thank
We
you,
talked
Councilmember
about this project. Did that include reducing the speed through that corridor? Was that part of the challenge that we were trying to solve with this one, or is that a future discussion that we were having?
Yeah,
that's
that's
item 9.
Yeah.
right. Item 9. Yeah, that's separate from the project on item 9, but we did mention that we are currently working with WashDOT to lower speed limits on Evergreen Way and Everett Mall Way. And that'll be an action that we'll bring to council as a resolution as soon as we conclude our concurrence with WashDOT.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 11, which is a public hearing. I'll read the item and open the public hearing. Authorize the mayor to sign the community solar property lease with Snohomish County PUD in the form substantially provided. Before I call on anyone, I believe we have Ryan Sass waiting to make a presentation.
Yes, thank you. Ryan Sass with Public Works. I will be sharing my screen here for a short staff presentation. With us tonight, we have Brenda White and Susie Oversby from Snohomish County PUD. Brenda is the Manager of Local Government Relations and External Affairs, and Susie is the Senior Customer Energy Services Program Manager. And Susie will be joining me in this brief presentation, provided I can, there we go. Okay. All right, hopefully my screen is up. All right, great, thank you. This is a brief presentation regarding the South Everett Community Solar Project. This is a PUD project to build, operate, and maintain a photovoltaic solar power array. Additional details will be shared with regard to some of the benefits of this project. Everett's role is primarily as the lessor. We intend to lease a 15-year lease with a 5-year option on some utility property to site the facility, and additional project participants include St. Vincent de Paul and Washington State Department of Commerce, who is a grant funder. And with that, I will have Susie Oversby provide a little bit of detail about the project. Susie?
Thank you, Ryan. Good evening. I'm really pleased to have the opportunity to present with Ryan tonight and for your consideration of this project and lease. We have two primary objectives with this solar project. The first, to reduce energy cost burden for income qualified PUD customers. And the second is to strategically locate the solar project to optimize the electrical grid. And so when we have built it, the outcome will be that we'll have installed a 375 kilowatt solar array in the Casino Road neighborhood. The PUD will be directing the solar generation benefits to our emergency bill assistance program, which I'll speak to in a minute. And then lastly, we'll be utilizing the array to reduce summer peak demand on the electric grid. So the emergency bill assistance program that I mentioned, it's called Project Pride, which stands for Providing Relief for Individuals Dependent on Energy. And this is a longstanding PUD program that's funded through voluntary customer contributions. It's administered by St. Vincent de Paul, and it serves approximately 500 customers annually. And over the past 2 or so years, about half of the Project Pride recipients have been Everett residents. So we find it quite fitting and appropriate to be locating this solar project in Everett. And according to our best forecasting, we estimate that the solar array will generate enough energy to provide approximately $27,000 in energy credits to Project Pride on an annual basis for the life of the project. We had a couple of criteria we considered when citing the project. The first was to provide project benefits to income qualified customers, and particularly, in an urban setting with customers who might not otherwise have access to solar. And secondly, again, to locate the array for grid benefits, specifically to offset peak load in the summer. So we landed on this site near Casino, or just off of Casino Road, where there is dense multifamily housing that has a high degree of income qualified households. It's also an area that, using this tool that's provided by the Washington Department of Health, it ranks high on this health environmental health disparities map. And then lastly, using PUD analytics, we identified the neighborhood as one that has heavy summer peaking circuits. So in general, the PUD electric grid has capacity constraints in the winter, but in this particular location, there's also some constraints in the summer that we think that this solar array could help alleviate. Thank you, Ryan.
Having some technical difficulties advancing the slide now. Let's see if I can do it here. There we go. All right, so the site identified is city utility property at the Reservoir 6 site that is adjacent to Walter E. Hall Park. And the site detail, the PUD will be leasing approximately 1.7 acres of property. This particular site was attractive for this particular use because they're able to access the site through our utility property access, and it also provides them with an excellent connection to the power grid. And that concludes our brief report. and happy to entertain any questions.
Thank you. Before we go to council questions, Deb Williams, is there anyone who wishes to speak on this item?
President Stonecipher, we do not have anyone wishing to speak on this item.
Okay, so we have no public speakers for the public hearing. I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second, by Vogely.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second to close the public hearing. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes.
And can I really quick, can I get a confirmation on who motioned it? The computer glitch.
Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you.
Thank you. And let's go down the roll to see what questions or comments we have. We'll start with council member, who's up first here tonight? Councilmember Fosse.
Thank you. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. This is really exciting stuff. I think that's a fantastic location, it seems. With the combining it with Project Pride, is that the exclusive, I guess not to say benefactor, but the exclusive where that energy is going and the customers that it's going to apply to is the 500, and is that the plan for the next 15 years, or is there plans for expansion in the future to expand that base? Or if you have any more information on kind of more of the trajectory.
Ryan, do you want me to?
Yeah,
to
Susie,
take that?
please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, right now the plan is really just to have the one so-called subscriber to the project as being St. Vincent de Paul, and hopefully expand. The intent is to expand that 500 to more with this additional funding. We received as Ryan had mentioned, a grant through the Department of Commerce, and it was specifically for a low-income solar project, and so this was what we had proposed to fit that requirement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And my apologies. I'm gonna get the item on the table before we go to the next council member. So I do need to have a motion to move the solar property
Probably
lease
will
agreement.
motion that this happens unless lawyer David has something to say.
Uh-oh.
Lawyer David,
Did I blow it?
Tui
As a
makes
minor
the second.
clarification.
Sorry.
Nor
Council
Dave.
President,
Yes.
I'm sorry, I do have a minor clarification. The action item, as it reads, says authorize the mayor to sign the lease. There is a resolution in the packet, so the motion should be to adopt the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the lease.
Thank you.
Vogely
Okay.
moves to adopt the resolution for the mayor to sign the lease for this project.
Seconded. Council member.
Thank you. I'm going to read the recommendation because it's on the resolution, or yes, on the action item. Adopt the resolution authorizing the mayor to sign the community solar property lease with Snohomish County PUD in substantially the form provided. And we had a motion from
Vogely
thank you. And a
to
second.
move it forward from Fosse.
Thank you. Okay, my apologies. I didn't read the item into the record. We will go next to council member
It's my turn, but I see
Vogely.
Councilmember Schwab has his hand up.
Councilmember Schwab.
I don't want to go out of place. I'll wait.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you for the presentation. I like the idea. As for Councilmember Fosse's question, follow up, does this, let's see, she wanted to know the subscriber and who's getting it and all of that. For how long is it required that it will be for low income? Just, yeah. Is there a requirement to continue it always, or is it grandfathered? I want it to be for low income, but curious what the future holds.
Yeah, so just again looking to Ryan to make sure he wants me to keep answering. Yeah, so our obligation under the grant is that it be in place for a minimum of 13 years, and funding being a low income program.
Okay, thank you. Now then, I would like to mention that there is a community garden of sorts directly to the north, and I want to make certain that it looks like it's not even going to be touched, but maybe it will be touched, and I want to just put that out there and make sure that the garden is able to stay and pretty much untouched.
Yeah, we were familiar with the community garden, and we will avoid impacts to it.
Awesome. That is good to hear. Thank you. And are there any large trees that will need to be felled in order to create a better solar capture?
I don't believe there's certainly not any substantial clearing. There might be some brush cutting and whatnot, but I don't believe.
I didn't see any, but I wasn't
clearing.
entirely sure. Okay.
There are a couple that are on the property that we'll probably have to take down.
Okay, so I want to put it out there that I've been learning all about tree canopy, but not just tree canopy, but also requirements. I don't know what our requirements as a city is. I'm sure that my committee is going to figure it out real quick. But I'm just putting it out there that we still need our trees. And of course we need solar and for low income, but and I think there's like one. Okay, so that's out on the record. Glad you discussed the health disparities map. And then I just had this bright idea, could we get lighting at the skate park as part of this deal? And probably not, but it's right there. I'm sure we'll get the glare from the sun for the people skating, and we need some lighting there too. So that's all I have. And thank you for making this, allowing us to hopefully make this happen.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
Yeah, thanks, Council President. My question is a little bit further off of a couple of questions that have already come up is, how do people find out about this opportunity and apply? And how, does it come through their PUD bill that's saying, you're in an area that can, access this? And, so say a person does get
I think I know
Go ahead, Susie.
where she was going. So this actually doesn't change the application process to Project Pride, and there isn't any additional hoops to jump through or anything. It's the solar array is simply generating additional funds that will be expand that pool of funding. So, I apologize. I don't know exactly our application process for Project Pride, but I'm sure it's on our website, and people would just go through that channel through St. Vincent de Paul.
Thank you. And I noticed when I did a little research before the meeting, I noticed that St. Vincent de Paul is the contact for the Project Pride application. So they must be administering it on behalf of the PUD, which is wonderful. Councilmember Ryan.
No questions or comments. Glad to see this project and glad to see more solar. I'd even love to see if while we're doing the work on the municipal building if we can add some solar up top while we're at it. So yeah, happy to see it. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Yes, thank you. I had two questions. One was there any other sites in Everett that were considered? And the second question is there a potential to adding this type of project within the city limits of Everett? Thank you.
I think PUD was looking for sites throughout the city. This was a site that they identified and that we researched and found to be suitable. With regard to the potential for other projects, I will defer to Susie and PUD, but I believe it would be a function of the grant program that they, through Department of Commerce.
Yeah, right now the grant that we have is specific to this project, and we'll be using all of it for this project. But that's not to say that that there's not potential for other projects within Everett at some point. Yeah, we're certainly open to further discussion. Did I get both of your questions answered?
That's good enough. I just want to be on the record of saying these type of projects are very encouraging and love to see more if your agency was looking at additional projects.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
Well, I'm happy to see this augmenting Project Pride. It means a way to get emergency assistance out there with no additional staff or bureaucracy or changes in processes. This is happening right near where I used to live. Happy to see us taking advantage of decreasing cost and increasing efficiency of solar. And it'll be neat to see it help reduce the burden on our system during the peak summer demand, especially considering the increasing use of air conditioning in our area. And if we find ourselves in a heat wave like we did last June. And the neat thing is we're taking advantage of land we're not using right now, and partial funding versus external grants, so an efficient use of the city's funds and the utilities funds. And neat that it helps augment assistance that's funded through the generosity of our community members. So it seems like a win on all counts that way. And also, nice that it avoids a burden on nearby residents and property owners because it doesn't produce any noise or other emissions. These are areas that have had a tough time over the years, have not been as well served or as kindly treated. So it's nice to see some consideration that way. And even though we aren't like the southern states where peak power use matches peak solar radiation, it just seems like modern solar technology, maybe counterintuitively, can really be practical here. And if the power use of my house on average, half a kilowatt or so is typical, that means powering some 750 houses when this thing is up and running actively during the day. So good news on all those counts. I really support this kind of thing, and hopefully, and I imagine knowing where you folks are, you will look for or spot or bring to our attention any future opportunities that look like this. There are probably other sites that are possible if we can get the funding for it. So thank you all, congratulations, and thank you for a good presentation, but congratulations on a success in bringing this in.
Thank you. And for my questions, I have a question about the solar program in general, and I may have old information, but at one point, I remember there were some participants in our community or some of our residents that had contacted me erroneously, it turned out, to complain about the PUDs limiting the amount of solar buyback that they could sell back to the PUD from their solar installation. They had implemented solar thinking under one set of assumptions, and there was some, I think they believed that they were being limited on how much they could sell back to the PUD. Is that still in place? Does that accurately reflect the solar program at the PUD, and is that still in place? And I'm just curious how this adding solar here plays into that, if so.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not, it may be that those folks may have been participating in our net metering program, which is our residential solar program.
Yes.
That's really that has law. It's a state law, so there are limitations based on the law in terms of how much power can be generated and put back on the grid. So they essentially need to have kind of a net zero generation and consumption at the end of a kind of a 12-month period. I'm guessing that might have been what it was with respect to, and that law still is in place.
Okay, and so this solar is just a separate
Right, this
program
is
from any of that.
outside of the net metering law, exactly.
Okay, great. Well, I'm very supportive of this program. I think it's a great use and would really love to know if there are opportunities to expand it to other city locations. I'm sure we have plenty of vacant land and rooftops and other areas where solar panels could be installed and helped, to reduce our reliance on the water coursing over our dams, which I think would be helpful. Luckily, we have good clean sources of power in the Northwest in all accounts, but still solar is cleaner still than the dam generation that we rely on mostly. That's all the comments that I have. I think we are ready to take action on this item. We have a motion and a second on the table. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zerlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Thank you, PUD members. We're going to move on to our action item now. Item 12, authorize city staff to apply for and the mayor to approve and sign all documents related to the 2023 congressionally directed spending and all documents related to acceptance of the grant. Do I have a motion?
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
Councilmember Tui seconds the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Let's see if we have any questions or comments, starting with Councilmember Fosse.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Vogely.
I'm all for transit. Let's make it bigger, better, faster, and reliable. So that's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui.
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Ryan.
No question. Just want to send a quick comment to Melinda and her team for all the hard work they did on getting this together. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
Quick note that I don't think this should go past without us seeing that the combination of these two measures reduces takes out of service some older diesel buses and reduces our fleet to less than 20% diesel. So a lot of electric out there. So not only transit, but really low impact transit. That's neat to see, and leveraging some other taxpayer funds, making the most of our own city taxpayers funds. So once again, great news. Thanks.
Thank you. And I just want to give a shout out to our congressional delegation, Representative Larson, Senator Murray, Senator Cantwell have helped make these earmarks happen. And I know that Senator Murray in particular has always said that earmarks are essential, and she supports them all the way. And this is why we should too. That's my only comment. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Item 13, authorize city staff to apply for and the mayor to approve and sign all documents relating to the 2022 low, no, and 2022 bus and bus facilities for $16,575,000 and all documents related to acceptance of the grant. Do I hear a motion?
Vogely moves that motion.
Councilmember Tui seconds the motion.
We have a motion and a second. Let's see if there are any comments or questions, starting with Councilmember Fossey.
No comments or questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Vogely,
Same as before, go transit.
Councilmember Tui,
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Ryan,
No questions or comments.
Councilmember Schwab,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
My previous comment covered this one too, so no further ones from me. Thank you.
and ditto for me. Clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fossey,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stone Cipher.
Yes. Item 14, reject MSI claim of error, accept the MSI bid, and award the contract for Evergreen Pump Station modifications to MSI in the amount of $4,863,152.90. And in the case of MSI failure to execute the contract as required, authorize mayor to accept ALIA bid and award contract to ALIA in the amount of $5,480,782.29 and to take all necessary steps to enforce MSI's bid bond. Do I hear a motion?
Vogely so moves.
Councilmember Tui seconds the motion.
A motion and a second. Let's see if we have comments or questions. Councilmember Fossey.
President Stone Cipher, before we begin, we have one individual waiting to speak on this item.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Deb Williams. I didn't note that on my agenda. Yes, let's have that
No
person
problem.
speak.
John Orgles, I apologize. I'll just say John. Please begin by giving your name and city for the record. Please begin. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes, and at 30 seconds, I will ask you to wrap up. John, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me?
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, my name is John Ogersoka. I represent McClure & Sons. I'm also a resident of Everett. If you look at the top of the City Council agenda, cover sheet 1, the funding for the project is listed at $6.1 million, which is a bit misleading. The cover sheet fails to mention that the engineer's estimate for the project was only $4.1 million. The project advertised the bidders at the same value, $4.1 million. So there's a $2 million discrepancy, not explained or disclosed to council. The recommendation requested of the councils on the bottom of cover sheet 1 is to award the project for either $4.9 million to McClure with a known bid error, or to a second bidder at $5.5 million. Both of these options will result in amounts exceeding the engineer's estimate, ranging from $1 million to $1.4 million. It was also discovered that the electrical bid item alone on the engineer's estimate is $1.9 million, but bids came in over $3 million. The reason is the city sole sourced a number of products, which inflated the cost. McClure received a letter dated March 25th describing 3 action items, not the 2 that are listed on your sheet. That would be considered by the council. Looking at the council agenda, the missing third option is an important option in my opinion, and that is to reject all bids. As you're aware, this is common when projects are over budget, and we've seen this in other projects. I asked, wouldn't the city council want to request the engineer's review of why the project's $1 to $1.5 million over the engineer's budget and protect those funds? Why was the engineer's budget off by so much? By rejecting all bids, the solicitation designers can explore more the major differences in prices between estimated values and actual bids. Possibly the electrical items can be expanded to include additional open competition on the electrical supply items that represent the $1 million bust in the city's estimate. I noticed also that the city council's cover sheet on the city attorney is asking or seeking enforcement of McClure's bid bond in the amount of $240,000. What will that cost all parties, and how much time will that take? I want you to know that errors happen on bids, and if you make an error, it's common for public agencies to release the bidder from bid bonds, and they can do so for any reason. The city knows there's a problem with the bid, and they can tell from the second and third bidders in the 5.5 million area in comparison. Rejecting our error is adding another mistake. The city can easily fix the problem tonight and choose to rebid or go to the second bidder and release McClure. McClure is a small business, been in business for 30 years, and is a local business, and we've performed other work with the city on a regular basis over the years. We currently have one contract ongoing. This has never happened to us before. This proposed action is unfair to us and is also unfair to the electrical subcontractor who made the initial error. In closing, the city should consider all matters in fairness, and the city council should either reject all bids, which they have the option to do, award to the second bidder, but they should not seek enforcement against McClure and its subcontractor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Orgosoka, and I apologize, I messed up your name. I appreciate your comment.
And no other comments from the public, is that correct?
That is correct, President Stonecipher.
Thank you, Deb. We will go to Councilmember Fossey.
Come back to me.
Thank you, Councilmember Bogley.
Well, this is all very interesting, and having heard from, you're not on the screen anymore, Mr. Ogorsoka, and also having read, the information that we have gotten, this is a tricky situation, and I am inclined to continue to move forward and not reject all bids. I imagine, since with all of the facts as they are written with time stamps and this and that, and knowing, as per John's acknowledgement, that he's been at it for 30 years, and typically, if you've been at it that long, you've been doing a really good job, then you know what you're doing and know how it works. So I am not convinced to let the error go. I might be convinced by the time everybody talks, but that's what I have to say right now.
Thank you, Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I agree. It's very interesting. There's a lot of facts here. I mean, it's unfortunate, obviously, for the bidder, because, I'm sure that's not anything that they ever wanted to do. I do understand that, the city is kind of under an obligation to keep things moving. So I'm not convinced that we should do anything other than what the staff has recommended, I have a lot of trust in our staff here at the city and their knowledge base of how things should work. So in review of everything, I don't have any further questions. I think I had all my questions answered with the information that was sent to us. So right now I'm, feeling bad for the contractor, of course, but not feeling enough that I would change the recommendation of the staff. So that's all I have right now.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you. I'd actually love to hear from David or Ryan and share some input on things we should be taking into consideration.
Sure. I'll just mention broadly one important consideration here is that the contractor has missed the deadline to make any kind of bid protest. But in terms of a detailed answer, I think Tim Benedict can address any questions you have.
Yes, I think that a key thing to keep in mind here is that on the question of bid error, we've actually already been to Snohomish County Superior Court on this matter. The contractor brought a motion for an injunction. All of the arguments on the bid error have been made, and the Superior Court ruled in favor of the city. And so I don't think there's any basis under Washington law to accept this claim of bid error. And so our recommendation stands.
Ryan, was there anything you wanted to add? You're on mute.
Thank you. I did want to make a comment. Thank you. It's not frequent, but it's not uncommon to have bid errors, and typically in a substantive bid error, the city is requested to relieve the bidder from responsibility, and we have done so in the past. What is unique and different about this, and what makes it a more difficult issue, is that this was a known bid error to the contractor prior to them submitting their bid. And so it was a decision on their part as to whether to proceed or not to proceed with their bid with a known error. And that makes it very difficult for us to relieve them of their responsibility and waive their bid.
Thank you. Any other questions, Councilmember Ryan?
Not at this time, thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Just a comment. I just think if a bidder discovers an error, they should aggressively inform the city right away, no matter what part of the process they're in. So I'm at this point, I'm supporting the staff's recommendations.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I've gone through the staff recommendations documents and looked through even the bid details, and I think our staff, legal and public works, have done a good job of representing this and going through the process. And I'm happy with that, and I support them in their recommendations.
Thank you. And I too read through the memo that thank you, Tim Benedict from City Attorney's Office submitted to council for our consideration, read through that very carefully. And I also agree with the staff recommendation. It's unfortunate, but in our in our work lives, we all make mistakes, and some mistakes cost more than others. I think that's why you have a bid bond rather than it coming from straight from your pocket. And so we appreciate very much the opportunity to work with MSI on other projects. But I agree with staff recommendation that has been brought forth before us. I'll go back because some passed, and are there any other questions or comments? And if so, from council members, please unmute yourself and make yourself known.
I'd like to note that I think what we are obligated to do here is protecting the interest of the citizens and the integrity of the process here. And I am satisfied that both Public Works and our legal departments have paid close attention to that process and its propriety and protecting the public interest. And that was primary in my mind in this. And I just want to say that I think they have indeed done that.
Thank you. Any other last questions or comments before we take the roll? Councilmember Fossey.
I just want to say that it's an unfortunate situation, but I do concur with Councilmember Zarlingo and appreciate the staff and the recommendation.
Thank you. Any last comments? Hearing none, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Councilmember Fossey,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Item 15, adopt resolution approving the City of Everett 2022 Surface Water Comprehensive Plan. Do I hear a motion?
Councilmember Ryan, so moves.
Councilmember Tui seconds.
Hear a motion and a second. Let's see if we have any questions or comments. Councilmember Fossey,
No questions or comments. Thank you.
Councilmember Vogely,
Did we happen to hear about this at a meeting that I wasn't at?
You were not here last week. I
Okay,
believe.
so
That's when
I
it was
will
briefed.
watch it and I have no questions.
Thank you. Councilmember Tui,
No questions. Thank you.
Councilmember Ryan,
I had a chance to ask my questions last week, so thanks to Heather for the presentation.
Councilmember Schwab.
Real quickly, this isn't exactly the most exciting environmental protection process that we look at, but it's so important how we treat our stormwater. All the things that are running off our tires and our engines onto the street. So I just really appreciate what the city of Everett has done in this area.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I'll second what Councilmember Schwab said and hope that this very comprehensive plan, not even sure I could lift it all, but certainly I can go through the executive summary. But yeah, I do think there's some neat opportunities here, as Councilmember Ryan mentioned last time, about things like stormwater parks and just the general health of our community and treating stormwater that we have sometimes so much of. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just say for my part, Heather Griffin did a wonderful job briefing us last week. I still didn't make it through both of the tomes, but the executive session was very helpful and the briefing last week was very comprehensive. Appreciate that. I know this is probably a huge body of work for Heather and her team, and appreciate so much having been briefed in a comprehensive way so that we know what we're acting on. Having said that, clerk, will you please take the roll?
Can I ask one question really quick? Sorry. This is Councilmember Vogely.
Councilmember Vogely, I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand up. Yes, please go.
Okay. Does this particular comprehensive water plan have anything to do with the, I'm going to call them ditches because I'm not sure if that's what they're called. I mean, they are ditches where possibly salmon go and could be affected by it. There's a lot of stuff going on in Marysville with what I'm talking about, but I don't have all of the words. And salmon are dying and they are flopping up into the roadways because some of the land use and development is not caring at all about the wetlands and the stormwater drainage scenarios. So does this have anything to do with that type of thing?
Yes, Councilmember Vogely. Yes, it's certainly related. It's part of the stormwater plan. The plan identifies what for us at this time are optional projects for culvert replacement for purposes of fish passage. Don't say that quickly 3 times. And currently the state of Washington is under requirements to replace culverts for that purpose. And the city has identified opportunities and those are listed as optional projects in the capital part of this plan.
Okay, thank you so much. And I'm ready to vote.
Thank you. Clerk, will we please take the roll?
Councilmember Fosse,
Yes.
Councilmember Vogely,
Yes.
Councilmember Tui,
Yes.
Councilmember Ryan,
Yes.
Councilmember Schwab,
Yes.
Councilmember Zarlingo,
Yes.
President Stonecipher.
Yes. Let's see, where are we? We are at item 16. This is the council resolution. I'll read it. Adopt the resolution establishing the city council rules of procedure for the conduct of council and repealing resolution number 7719. I mentioned earlier in the meeting that we just got the latest draft out to council members yesterday. I know some council members missed last week's meeting, may want to review that tape to see how those changes came about. And so I'm not intending to take action on this tonight. I'd like to move this forward to a future meeting. We'll put it on the agenda for next week. But if we're not ready to take action at that time, of course, we can move it forward again. But at this point, I did want to give council members an opportunity to ask questions or speak to the resolution, just in case there's anything that needs to happen between now and next week's agenda. So I will go down the roll. And again, if nothing needs to change, we will just move this forward onto next week's action agenda and see if we can take action on it at that time. We will start tonight. Comments or questions from Councilmember Fossey.
Thanks. Yes, thank you for moving the action portion of it until later. I do have some listed things as far as like formatting consistencies and some of changes to just make things a little bit more consistent. And I did appreciate the adjustments to the section 3.2 that actually looks really good. I think that given we are still technically in a pandemic and things have been a little bit fluctuating, and we have the opportunity to make it more prescriptive in future years and every year as we make changes to it. I think there's nobody on this council that would want to, we all want to come to the meetings. We all want to be here and we all are dying to go back in person. And I think that is a general feeling that is probably felt by all of us very strongly. So it is something that we can definitely, mend later if that becomes abuse, but I doubt it will. I think that our approach should be definitely encouraging more participation, and I really appreciated your comments last week, Councilmember Stonefight, for that when you were talking about the order of priority of participation and talking about the public first, Councilmember second, and that really spoke to me when you were chatting. As far as sections that I do think need some work, when in the public comment, I know there's been a lot of adjustments there, but 7I, when it talks about speakers not engaging in abusive behavior and not, no assault allowed or, sexual harassment. I think it's kind of redundant given the previous thing above it, the previous clause that basically says, you should be courteous. And I don't think we need, I think it's redundant just given the fact that we have laws against some of that stuff anyways. So I'm not sure that we need to tell people not to assault or sexually harass people in our council rules, because that should be a given. So if it were me, I would, slightly elaborate on number 6, slightly like above that, or just take that out overall, because I think it doesn't need to be there. When the public comment must be relevant to city services, programs, projects, or activities, I think it should be relevant to city council business, city services, et cetera, because city council business can be a little bit broader than that. There's a potential for it, and I would rather not have the comments be so completely restrictive. And then for the new section below, it looked like it was merged together, and it doesn't seem like all of those items necessarily fall under and number 8, where it says comments which are out of order, the council president, presiding officer, city attorney may rule any speaker out of order, but then it also in that same one talks about non-speakers, but then it talks about out of order conduct, and then it has things under that line that is not necessary out of order conduct. And so I have a couple of just formatting changes that might, and some language changes that might make that make a little bit more sense, since it looks like it was
My
merged
soup is
together.
too hot, so it's in there.
So I'm happy to send that over to Deb and administration, just to make it so that it actually reads more contractually how it should. But those are most of where my edits are, other than just simple formatting corrections to just make sections relevant to other sections. So that's it.
Thank you. If you have specific edits, also.
I have can I send like my track changes document to?
Perfect. Yes. Why don't you send that to Deb Williams and we'll collect everything together.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Vogeley.
Yeah, so a couple of things. First, well, yes, thanks for, pushing it out and allowing for more comment, because there was only 4 people last week. I watched it. And also Mr. Kunzler, who we've heard from before, has some interesting remarks and about the RCW that has been passed, and about being disrespectful. I'm all for folks telling us how it is and why it is, and that can sometimes be loud, but there's also the need for safety of staff and council, elected officials and whoever else is in the room. So I'm just putting that out there. Mr. Kunzler, I've heard you, I'm sure other people have too, and I think it's valid. My comments, besides how people speak, have to do with ableist language. And like, for instance, meeting disruptions by non-speakers are prohibited. I know what that means, but I hear it as, oh, if you're mute, it's ableist, I think. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe somebody that's not here today can tell me, but and then outbursts who have not been recognized by the council president. I know it's getting weedy, but outbursts aren't people, they're things. And how can you say, oh, sure, you can go ahead and have an outburst? Of course, an outburst is going to be not recognized by the council president, just as, it's an outburst. I know I've had one at least once. So those are the types of stuff that I have, and I didn't write it all down, but I want to make sure that it is an inclusive document, that, I'm deaf in one ear. I can't hear everything. And I know that there's blind and deaf people that come to watch and listen, which you'd think would be difficult, and it probably is. And I just want to make sure that we're not being ableist. And I'll get my stuff written down really well, so I don't, just come across as that one person that makes those weird comments. And I'll be happy to speak more clearly next week. That's all.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, I appreciate having extra time, as I was off last week also, and I looked it over a few times, and I will send any suggestions through the email. I don't think there's anything huge that I would change, maybe just a few wording things, but I'll just forward that and you can see what works. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Thanks. I feel like this is like the ultimate team building exercise to put this all together. So I wanted to revisit the remote participation section. I know that we all definitely want to be back in person and participating and having exemplary attendance to the meetings. And when we do get to be back in person, I do hear councilmember concerns that there might be, just to prevent abusing participating remotely, even though we are in person. So I thought a good compromise might be to limit it to 2 times per year that a council member could, with a very good, very, very, very good reason, join remotely when the rest of the council is in person. I think about, like for me specifically, I have 2 young kids, and they always have boogers, and with COVID, and if I'm a close contact, but I'm not, having any symptoms, I'd still like to participate from home, especially if there's an important vote. If somebody's recovering from surgery and they can't make it to chambers, but they can still participate, so to have like a limit to the number of times that somebody can participate remotely, just as a way to make sure that it's really it's worth it. So wanted to put that out there. I did notice that participating remotely in executive sessions. I know that I saw that section was removed, and I'm not sure I totally agree with that. I think that I think if a council member is joining remotely, they should guarantee that their connection is secure, or that the space that they're in is a secure location to ensure attorney-client privilege. But I don't feel like it's any different from what we're doing right now during executive sessions. We're joining remotely from a secure space, so being able to allow for that as well, I think would be reasonable. So other than that, great job, everybody. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Yes, thank you. I think we're heading in the right direction. Maybe just some small changes. I'll make some edit changes and email it to you. So I think we're very close. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zarlingo.
I think my previous comments summarized virtually all of my feedback. I guess a quick note on Mr. Kunstler's comment. He brought up something that is worth noting, that one of the reasons, maybe the main reason to seek to keep things civil, well, one of several reasons, and that isn't for the pleasure or the comfort of us council members, but not only for the safety and the civility of the staff, but also for other commenters. He made the comment that, as you've seen in comment sections in various publications on the web, if they're unfettered, unmoderated, they can drive away positive comments. That's another reason to do what we can to keep these as civil and as on target as we can. I'm certainly tolerant of people who have things to say that may not at first seem to me to be all that relevant, but if they're civil and they're in the interest of the city, I'm always interested in hearing that. I just would not want some things that are pranks or abusive to drive away productive comments, because that's the essential function here. So the bias toward open comments and flexibility in that, and then some of this we will have to wrestle with complicated things that may not be quite clear until we are forced to deal with them. And thanks, by the way, I appreciate everybody's work on this. I think everybody's really working to make this as good of a document and procedure as it can be. I appreciate that.
Thank you. And I don't have much to add. I appreciate everyone's reading through this and giving feedback. Always editing a document in a group is difficult. But if everyone can please get all your comments and edits, even if it's some typographical or we're missing a comma or a period somewhere, please send those to Deb Williams, and I'll ask if we can get those to her by Monday so that she can get a solid draft together. We still do want to have legal. We've been waiting to get kind of a good draft. We do want to send it to legal for them to review it for any kind of legal concerns. In particular, want to make sure that we're still in compliance with the House bill that recently passed. So if you can get those to Deb Williams by Monday. Thank you. Councilmember Vogely.
One more ramble, please. Thank you, President Stonecipher. I am curious, and maybe since we have legal on the call right now, I'm curious about the use of public comment for advertising. And of course, I don't think we should have people making commercials for their business. What I'm thinking about is when people make public comment, and I remember one time about natural gas and possibly making it so that new homes don't have it going in, and a person that worked in a field was in that natural gas field, Fireplace Natural Gas, mentioned his company and how, lots of times people come in and mention either the projects that they're doing with a certain organization or the jobs that they have with a certain company. And it's not advertising, but it seems like it would be, as it looks in, I guess it's number 11. So I'm just curious if that can be stated differently, or if we just forget about it and just pretend it doesn't exist. And when somebody uses language, well, my company of this sort, and well, oh, okay. Is that making any sense?
Thank
We,
you.
we can take a look at that and see if it can be clarified somewhat.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Lori Cummings.
Hi, I just wanted to acknowledge that I communicated with Ramsey Rammerman, who assists David Hall, and indicated he didn't need to come to council tonight. So I apologize if we're looking for some detailed responses, but I do know that he does want to work with you, Council President Stonecipher, on the issue about remote meetings, and as you referenced how that is referenced in House Bill 1329. It seems like it may only be authorized during emergency. So I think we need to navigate that a little bit. And then there was some discussion about the differentiating executive session from the council meetings. And so I just want to kind of put that out there today, that I think we need to provide some assistance to council in terms of some of that legal advice beyond tonight. And not sure if David wants to add anything else, but just wanted to share that.
I like your suggestion that we wait for Ramsey on that. He's the expert.
Yeah.
Well, here's one more thing for Ramsey. Public comment for campaigns. What about if we decide that, that we need to have a levy lid lift, and that's going to be a campaign? Are we not allowed to talk about it?
That is correct. Once it's on the ballot, you cannot campaign for it once it's on the ballot during a council.
Okay.
Yep, that's clear.
Thank you.
Once
That's really all.
Measure, yeah.
Thank you. So as I said, everyone who has comments, please get them to Debs. The sooner the better. We'd like to get our preferred draft to legal and have them tell us what we can and cannot do, and they can help us wordsmith some of that, particularly in light of the latest House bill that was approved. Let's see, we will move on now. Where are we? Okay, we are moving on to our council briefing agenda. These items come before the City Council serving as a council committee of the whole, are likely to be scheduled at a future meeting. Item 17, as mentioned previously, has been pulled. We'll have that. That is tentatively scheduled to return to council's agenda on April 20th. And so we'll move on to Council 18. Council Bill 2203-11. This is the first reading. Adopt the proposed ordinance approving the appropriates of the 2022 revised City of Everett budget and amending ordinance number 3838-21. The third and final reading for this will be on April 13th. And Susie Haugen is here to brief us on this item.
Thank you very much, and good evening, Council. If you'll bear with me, I will share my screen. And get started. So if approved, this amendment will increase the citywide expenditure budget by $17 million. And as you can see, the majority of this amount is related to reappropriations from the 2021 budget. The slides are laid out in the same order as in previous budget amendment briefings, listing all general government and non-general government reappropriations and amendments. Most of the amendment was briefed to Budget Committee, so I'll go through the items fairly quickly and we'll highlight those items that have been most recently added. We start off with general government proposed reappropriations. These represent unspent budget authority from 2021 being brought forward to 2022 to complete purchases, projects, or to direct capital. GGA 1 carries forward funding to complete the police efficiency study. GGR 2 is an item I spoke about at the budget briefing in February. It directs $2.8 million to CIP 1 to help address the maintenance deficiencies that Jeff Harris went over at that meeting. And then there are a couple of smaller items, the Council of Neighborhoods retreat that was postponed from 2021 to 2022 due to COVID concerns, and a retirement payout in the Animal Services Department. The reappropriations on this slide are all related to the Police Department. They include carrying forward funds for the 2021 lateral hiring incentive program, funds for purchases and services started in 2021 but not completed by year end, and funding for the police incentives package previously discussed with council. Fire, Parks, and Library also have reappropriation requests for equipment, projects, and professional services ordered or started last year but not received prior to year end. The reason for some of the delays can be attributed to supply chain issues. Municipal Arts would like to carry forward $25,000 for the COVID-19 Memorial Project, as well as the outstanding balance of cultural art awards. And Streets would like to reappropriate the remaining 2021 overlay and projects funds to spend this year. The last general government reappropriation is for salary changes that went into effect after the proposed budget was developed. Most of the changes were to increase the salary level of IT technical staff. IT had lost over 30% of its staff over the past 2 years, and they were having a hard time recruiting replacements and retaining qualified staff. Other revisions were for police and fire command positions that were also below market rate. We start general government amendments with a grant for indigent defense social worker support, which was previously approved by council. GGA 2 adds 2 positions to human resources, which include a human resource analyst to provide needed capacity to focus on police recruitment, and a temporary human resources business analyst that will lead the upgrade conversion of our Kronos timekeeping system. Next, we increase the non-departmental fund budget for the lease payments to transit for the Bezos Academy and for a housekeeping issue related to a new governmental accounting requirement. Each year, the state distributes a portion of the state's 2% tax on insurance policy premiums to all cities with a pre-left firefighters pension fund based on their proportionate number of paid firefighters. These funds are restricted and must be used for Left One Firefighter Pension Fund. In the past, we have posted these funds directly to the Firefighter Pension Fund. However, the new guidance requires that the fund first be posted as a revenue to the general fund and then recorded as an expense of the general fund when payment is made to the pension fund. This amendment will provide the budget authority for that transfer. GGA 5 adds a 0.56 network systems analyst position to IT. This position will focus on financial system application development for custom systems, such as Praxis and the employee budget system. Praxis is our tax and license system. The cost of the position is partially offset by a reduction in the finance department's professional services budget. GGA 6 proposes to increase the animal services budget by $72,000 for the addition of an animal care and customer service assistant position, which will be funded in 2022 by an ASPCA grant and donations. The position will enable the veterinary team to significantly increase the number of spay-neuters and other surgeries and procedures for our partner animal welfare organizations and low-income households. GGA 7 through 9 are all police grants that were approved by council after the 2021 budget was developed. GGA 10 is for 2 fire grants approved by council on January 19th. The grants will be used to enhance fire's emergency management program. GGA 11 increases the fire department's labor budget by $365,000 to address the additional funding needed to pay for the 2022 IAFF contract settlement. The collective bargaining agreement with Everett firefighters, local number 46, was approved at the December 22nd, 2021 council meeting. Then we have a transfer of a maintenance mechanic from the Parks Department to the Facilities Department as part of the ongoing reorganization. GGA 13 increases the library budget by $322,000 for an emergency connectivity grant. This grant will allow the library to purchase 60 Chromebooks and 60 hotspots with data that can be checked out for free with the library card, and will also allow the library to provide free in-home broadband internet for up to 2,500 eligible households through June of 2022. The next proposed amendment would increase the library's budget by $136,000 to extend the free in-home broadband internet program through December of 2022. The last general government item is for the Therapeutic Court Program, and it was added after the budget amendment was briefed at Budget Committee. This grant was approved by Council in December, and the professional services agreement with Bridgeways, who will carry out the grant program, was approved at last week's Council meeting. Moving on to non-general government funds, we have reappropriations to complete 2021 vehicle purchases, funding for public programming and technology purchases from the library reserve, EMS funding for bunker gear, and funding for EMS command staff salary revisions similar to the general government reappropriation noted earlier. Next, we have carry forward for the unspent 1% for arts funding, reappropriations for ARPA funds approved last year for the Everett Ford grant and pallet shelter program, criminal justice funds to complete the boathouse repairs, and a CDBG grant that was not able to be dispersed prior to year end. The reappropriations on this slide carry forward funding for a variety of projects in process at year end for golf, IT, and the CIP funds. NGR 14 was added after the budget amendment was briefed at Budget Committee. This reappropriation would carry forward $865,000 for street and alley vacation funded projects that were previously approved by Council. And finally, we have the non-general government proposed amendments. NGA 1 increases the revenue budget for the $58,000 ASPCA grant and increases the expenditure budget by $85,000, $13,000 for equipment, and $72,000 for in transfers out to the Animal Services Fund for labor support, as noted in the general government amendment mentioned earlier. Next, the Everett Public Library Board of Trustees would like to engage a consultant to update the director evaluation process and provide leadership team coaching. The board approved this project last year. NGA 3 proposes to increase the library reserve budget by $53,000 to provide the additional funding, as noted earlier, to extend the free in-home broadband internet program through December of 2022. NGA 4 increases the EMS labor budget to address the additional funding needed to pay for the 2022 IAFF contract settlement. And finally, we have amendments for CIPs 1, 3, and 4 for projects previously approved by Council. CIP 1 is increased by $25,000 for the fire admin building tenant improvements. CIP 3 is increased by $58,000 for the 2022 forest restoration project. And CIP 4 is increased by $1.5 million, $900,000 for the downtown streetscape phase 3 project, and $600,000 for the later phase Eclipse Mill Park and Riverfront Trail Improvements project. And that concludes the briefing this evening.
Thank you, Susie. Let's go down the roll to see if we have questions or comments at this time. We'll start with Councilmember Fossey.
Thank you. On the, thank you for the presentation, by the way. I just have one question regarding 2 line items. I was just wondering if you could explain a little bit more about the project that they're for. It was with regards to the memorial project, and I think one of them was a grant.
So were you interested in the COVID-19 memorial project?
Yes.
And the cultural arts grants?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So last year, we had budgeted for art project to commemorate the experiences of the pandemic in this community. And the Arts Council has been working on that project, you know, developing the concept and selecting an artist, and they were unable to complete it last year. So that this would carry forward funds for that. And additionally, each year the cultural, we award cultural arts grants to artists in the community. And some of those grants were unable to be completed last year. So are proposing to carry forward the grant funds to allow them to be completed this year.
Okay, so they were separate then?
Yes.
Line item. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Next, Councilmember Vogely.
Thank you, Susie. I just have the comment that I'm very grateful to have been hearing your information every year, and I'm learning even more every time. And it's really lovely to know that NG is non-governmental. But thank you. I know that it's a lot of work, and I do enjoy hearing exactly about it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Toohey.
Yeah, thank you. I don't have any questions, but Susie, you always do a great job of having everything so well organized that it's easy to follow and appreciate it. So thank you, Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Ryan.
Nothing from me tonight. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Schwab.
Thank you, Susie, for your presentation and your hard work.
Thank you.
You do a lot of heavy lifting to get a presentation out like this. And your influence impacts the entire city on all spaces. So thank you much. And I know you have a lot of heavy lifting to do, as all of us do this year when it comes to budget items. So thank you for staying with us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Zarlingo.
I thought it was a very clear presentation. Thank you, Susie, and I don't have any more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Susie, I only have one question because and as chair of the budget committee, I should remember this. Remind me why the street overlay $500,000 or plus change needs to be carried over. Were we just not able to get that done because of COVID?
You know, actually, some of that is intentional. From year to year, there's a certain amount of projects that are scheduled to be done. And with the amount that we're able to budget for street overlay and matching funds for some projects, sometimes it takes a couple of years to amass enough money to undertake some of the larger projects. And so I think that it really is thoughtful planning on the part of Ryan Sass and his team to be able to put these projects out.
Great, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. As mentioned, this will be on our council meeting agenda on the 13th of April for final action. And if anyone has any questions between now and then, these will be on proposed action for the next couple of weeks. That brings us to the end of our agenda, and with no further business and no executive session, we are now adjourned.